Coxey's Army by Dakota Quigley and River Pinardo.
Coxey's Army was majorly influenced by an event by the name of the Panic of 1893. This was a series of bank failures due to shaky railroad financing. Not to mention, at this time, there was also major droughts going on in the Midwest. The value of crops went down and farmers could not pay their debts. Overall, it was a year of hard economic times for all sorts of people. During this fear of economical collapse, there was many events called bank runs. During bank runs, people ran to their banks and withdrew all their money so that the bank couldn't take it and dump it into funds where they would never see it again. After this, mass railroad production was cut, and Coxey started to form a plan with major impact. Coxey was a wealthy populist who bred horses, had hand-tailored suits, and owned a sand quarry in Ohio. As a populist, he believed to support the everyday person and achieve in reform rather than revolution. After his way home, watching destitute situations and bad road quality altogether, he came up with the idea of a $500 million plan. It would be financed by non-interest bearer bonds. People would be paid to fix roads during the time of no work. This would prevent another situation like the Panic of 1893, where 20% of the population was unemployed.
Coxey decided to hand-deliver this plan to the government on Easter Sunday of 1894. Coxey and 100 men started on a march that led them from Ohio all the way to Washington. Around the country, hundreds of others were attempting to do the same thing. Unfortunately, not all of them could make it due to the railroads being forewarned and the trains being the only way they could get all the way to Washington. Despite this, Coxey and his 500 men made it all the way to the capital. Once they reached there, though, Coxey did not receive a chance to give his speech nor deliver his bill to the government, for as soon as he made it to the steps, he was arrested for trespassing. Despite all the fame of the march, which gathered national media coverage, it really did not change the policy of the time. It wasn't until years later that workers' policies would be developed and written into law. If anything, the immediate aftermath of the March of Coxey's Army was that Grover Cleveland took a stronger stance against protesters, as seen when he broke the Pullman strike. Not being discouraged after his 20 days in jail, Coxey went on to attempt a political career that did not amount to much, as he ran for seats in the Senate, House, and even President of the United States. Never one to give up, Coxey returned to Washington 2 more times in his life. The first time in 1914, where him and a group of supporters made it to the steps of the Capitol, and Coxey delivered a speech pleading for jobs and help with unemployment. The second time, however, was 50 years after his first attempt. In 1944, Coxey went to the steps of the Capitol and delivered a riveting speech to people who probably didn't even know he was jailed for just trying to do this, not 50 years before.
On May 1st, 1944, a 90-year-old man with an old-fashioned high collar and gold-rimmed spectacles gave a speech on the steps of the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C.
Representatives of the toiling wealth producers have been denied. We have come through toil and weary marches to lay out our grievances at the doors of the national legislature and ask that they should heed the voice of despair and distress that is now coming up from every section of our country.
While Coxey's plan might have never been put into action, the effects of his March on Washington had an even greater impact. It inspired a generation of people seeking change and delivered to them a new way to protest.